That was the first of 2 flashbang grenades deployed by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents at the entrance to Coast Guard Island in Alameda. This was about 7 o'clock this morning. They also set off smoke bombs as agents tried to clear a path for vehicles to enter that facility. More than 100 federal immigration officials were supposed to be stationed there. But this afternoon, President Trump confirmed at a White House event the deployment has been paused after calls from tech leaders, among others.
It was a great, great city, has the potential very quickly to be a great city again. And these are the companies that are there that are all working. And those are the people that asked me, could you do away with the surge and let's see how it works.
He has decided, as he often does, to change his mind, which he seems to do on an hourly basis, and decided for the moment on the basis of some very powerful and wealthy people who made phone calls to him to back off, because it seemed to be in everyone's financial interest that they not make a spectacle of San Francisco.
President Trump saying that federal enforcement in other cities, including Chicago and Memphis, would continue.
San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie is now providing some new details about that conversation with President Trump and the president's decision to not send federal law enforcement agents to the city.
And KTVU's Christian Captain joining us now live. And Christian, the mayor said he spoke with the president and Secretary of Homeland Security.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And today we're getting more details about that conversation between Mayor Daniel Lurie and the President of the United States that ultimately put a halt, at least for now, to a federal deployment here in San Francisco. After days of speculation about the possibility of the Trump administration sending federal law enforcement assets to San Francisco, President Trump and San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie have announced that a surge in federal deployment for immigration enforcement is now off.
Late last night, I received a phone call from the President of the United States.
In that call, Mayor Lurie said that he told the president that San Francisco is on the rise and told the president about progress on law enforcement and progress on the financial front as well in San Francisco. Mayor Lurie said he welcomed ongoing partnerships with the FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. attorneys to get drugs and drug dealers off the city's streets.
In our conversation, the president told me clearly that he was calling off any plans for a federal surge in San Francisco. Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, reaffirmed that direction in our conversation this morning.
For his part, the president posted on his social media platform that he'd spoken with friends in the area and Mayor Lurie, and that the mayor had asked him very nicely that he be given a chance to turn it around. The president said he'd received calls from the heads of NVIDIA and Salesforce and ultimately decided to hold off on a deployment.
Maybe you heard we were going to do a big surge in San Francisco, but I got a great call from some incredible people.
The White House said the president was interested in working across the aisle to address crime.
He is genuinely interested in this effort to make our streets safer, to make our cities safe and clean again. And he heard from the mayor last night, who told him that he is going to earnestly try to make his city better on his own. The president heard him out. He said, okay, I'll give you a chance. We'll be watching, and if you need us, we are here.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom pointed to a drop in crime in San Francisco and said the president tends to listen when billionaires speak. The governor said while the deployment appears to be off, he questions whether that will be the case going forward.
I'm not thinking for a second that's the end of this in California. Quite the contrary. This guy's just winding up. Watch Election Day. Watch ICE, not just National Guard. Watch what's going on. Your own eyes all across this country. This guy is a chaos president. And I don't know what more symbolic or substantive example you need than that.
Based on some of these
Now, we did ask Mayor Lurie today if his conversation meant that there'd be no surge in San Francisco or there'd be no surge in the greater Bay Area. The mayor said that the president told him that there'd be no surge, so we're still trying to make sure that that means the wider, broader Bay Area. San Francisco, we're still looking for more detail on all of that, but at this point, you heard from both the president and from Mayor Lurie that the surge, at least for now in San Francisco, is off. We're live in San Francisco. Christian Captain, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Yeah, and obviously, while the mayor expressing some relief that the surge is on hold for now, did you get a sense from him about whether he was concerned about the future of the president deploying federal agents to the city?
You know, it's interesting. That was one of the questions that we had for him in the news conference. We'd asked him about that possibility. He said that there are contingency plans in place that were ready to go in place if we saw that surge in federal law enforcement for deportation purposes, for immigration purposes. Those plans, we talked with the city attorney, said those plans are still in place at this time and can be deployed if necessary. At this point, though, everybody seems to be trying to let things cool off and trying to hope for the best that this issue will resolve itself for now.
Yeah, still a really remarkable turnaround here over the last 24 hours or so. Christian Captain, live for us in San Francisco. Christian, thank you for that. Joining us now for some more perspective is Professor Bill Hing from the University of San Francisco. We appreciate the time this afternoon, Professor. It's good to see you. So we heard Christian's reporting here. President Trump says that Mayor Lurie called him up and asked him to call off this immigration operation, saying it would hurt the city's recovery. The president also got calls directly from a couple of tech leaders who sort of backed up the mayor in those conversations. What do you make of all this, and why do you think President Trump decided to back off of this federal deployment in San Francisco?
Well, I can only conclude that he decided to back off because people of financial influence reached him. And it's pretty remarkable, to be honest with you, given what's happened since January and the deployments and the raids in Los Angeles and Chicago and Memphis and Portland. I'm pretty amazed, to be honest with you, that the president changed his mind.
Bill, though, do you think in this case that San Francisco is a little bit unique here, and that perhaps even Mayor Daniel Lurie is a little bit unique in that he really has kind of taken a non-confrontational stance when it's come to President Trump and the Trump administration, even today saying, you know, that he welcomes continued partnerships. Do you think that had anything to do with the president's ultimate decision here?
It might very well have played a big difference because there are mayors of other cities, governors of other states that have been very outspoken, and so is our governor, in their criticism. And Mayor Lurie actually has kind of stepped back. I know that immigrant rights advocates have asked him to be more forceful, to be more like the mayor of Boston or more like the mayor of Denver. And he's chosen to be pretty low-key when it comes to asserting immigrant rights. He's not been bad, but he hasn't been an outspoken leader, and maybe that has redounded to the benefit of San Francisco.
I wonder, too, as we look at this, how much of this do we think is about the approach that you talked about from Mayor Lurie being, you know, less confrontational, more deferential to President Trump? It sounds like in that conversation, you know, the president described him as asking very nicely to call off this operation in San Francisco. How much of this is the mayor's approach, and how much of this has to do with those phone calls from Mark Benioff and the CEO of NVIDIA? Because obviously we know that President Trump, you know, he listens when business leaders talk.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both the mayor's approach and also these powerful billionaires that contacted the president. I'm sure it's a combination of it. And I would like to know whether or not he asked anything of the mayor in return. That's not something that has been fully disclosed.
And Bill, while there has been obviously tension from these federal agents arriving, especially, let's say, at Coast Guard Island in Alameda, and uncertainty in immigrant communities, the Department of Homeland Security says, you know, these enforcement operations are needed. They say they're not random sweeps of communities. They are targeted at individuals who have violated immigration laws, focused on removing, quote, criminal illegal aliens.
That just is not true. If you look at the enforcement activities, especially in Los Angeles and Chicago, the vast majority of people detained and put into removal proceedings have not had any criminal background. And the Supreme Court a few years ago, in the case dealing with the injunction in Los Angeles, went over the fact that most of the arrests that are being made are not of criminal aliens. But the Supreme Court allowed that to happen in Los Angeles, and that really upset a lot of immigrant rights folks. And so the record's clear. The focus is not on criminal immigrants.
Let me ask you here, because we have seen the focus for protesters here in the Bay Area on Coast Guard Island in Alameda, as we yesterday got word that federal immigration agents were arriving there. What do you think happens at that base moving forward here now that this major operation has apparently been called off for the entire Bay Area? Do you think we see those agents just pack up and leave?
Well, that's what we're hoping for in the immigrant rights community. We're worried because they're there. There's more than 100 confirmed, and a Border Patrol and ICE agents. And let's see what happens, because there's been some concern, especially in downtown Oakland, which is, of course, very close to the Coast Guard base.
All right, Bill Hing, I'll always appreciate your expertise on the immigration issue. Thank you again for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Be well.